everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Anat from the Waze Communities team. While our phenomenal Brett usually hosts our office hours, I'll be your host for this one. Joining us today is our amazing Chief of Product, Tina Weyand. Tina will introduce herself in just a moment. First, I have a few housekeeping notes for you. As you may know, we scheduled two of these calls for today. This is the later call. We do this whenever we can to allow members from more time zones to join us. We prepared just one deck. We plan to cover the same topics during both calls, but you know how it is with live sessions. They may end up looking entirely different. So it's great to see you here. Thank you for joining, and let's get started. For today's office hours, we'll start with this quick intro we're doing right now. Then we'll get to know Tina through her own introduction and a few fireside questions. After that, we'll answer the questions you submitted for Tina, and we've also worked in some questions from the NA Mega Meetup, which took place recently. We're enjoying the fact that Tina's here to keep answering the questions we didn't get to during the meetup, since we're sure everyone who joins our office hours is also interested in hearing our responses to those questions. We're not planning on taking live questions, but if you have a burning one, we can follow up on it after the session. So we're done with the agenda for today's call. Let's talk about the next office hours. On April 16th, we'll be dedicating the monthly show to WME and safety. We'll be taking a closer look at the new issue tracker and meeting with the Insights and Safety Squad to learn more about their upcoming closures initiative. For more details to come in the forum and Ways discuss. And now, let's hear from our Chief of Product, Tina. Take it away.
Thank you, Anat. It's great to be here with you all today. I just thought I would do a quick introduction, just a little bit of something about me. So I have over 20 years in product management. It's always very humbling when you update your bio to just see just how long you have been working at something. But yes, plus 20 years. And I want to just mention that I grew up very humbly in a family in which we were small business owners, and it was run inside our own home. And so from a very young age, I was helping out. I was answering the phone, taking down messages, and even at one point was so bold as to make calls and make appointments for my dad so he could do his service rounds. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. I should just note I'm an avid runner and I love adventure, and I can't always say it loves me because I'm currently suffering from a fall. But as you may have heard, there's a this or that type of questions, and I'm often asked this or that around tea or coffee, and I'm definitely coffee from the pictures. And I'm often asked about cat or dog, and I am both. I've had both cats and dogs. I love both equally, and I am trying to convince my husband to also love dogs. So we'll see how that goes. Now, places I've lived in a lot of different places. I spent a bulk of my time in California with a little brief interlude in Australia. And then I lived 3 years in Austin, Texas, 3 years in Seattle, and I am currently, as of last November, in New York City. And vehicles I've owned, I love to drive, and I really like to drive fast. I'm a huge fan of go-kart racing. And so I would say my favorite cars were the MGB and probably this WRX. And then I grew up a little bit and got a Ford C-Max and a Subaru. And I'm currently carless, but I'm trying to figure out what kind of car is going to work in New York. So stay tuned. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about why am I here? Why did I answer the call to be the Chief Product Officer at Waze and go through what I would say was a pretty rigorous interview process. I love creating products that drive a lot of value and impact users and delight users. And I started being a Waze user back in Austin when I was trying to figure out how to get home without taking the freeway during a massive thunderstorm. And it gave me a ton of comfort, not only seeing the alternate routes that were being suggested by other Wazers, but actually seeing the other Wazers on the road. And so I had more confidence in going off the freeway and taking side routes. And so I really felt like this was an amazing experience and product, and I've kept using it ever since. These are some other products that I love. As I mentioned, coffee in the morning. I miss my coffee maker whenever I'm away, and I'm a weather enthusiast. And my parents are quite elderly now, and I really like the smartwatches that have this fall detection. I had a neighbor who was 85, and her husband fell when he was getting out of the car, and immediately the watch alerted the emergency services and called and asked if he needed help. And so they were able to send an ambulance. And I really thought this was something for the movies, but it is like real, and it's super effective. Another reason that I'm here is I love building and growing teams. This is a picture of the Tel Aviv team when we went on a little excursion and team building event. But what really makes me the happiest in my role and in my career is seeing team members rise to new challenges and the occasion and learn a tremendous amount, and then grow in their abilities and skills and impact. And even if it means they have to leave my team or leave the company to take that next opportunity, I'm so excited and happy for them and to see that happen. And that is one of the things that it really gets me up every morning. I've worked many years with teams all over the world. And it's the same everywhere. Like, everybody wants to have an impactful career and grow. And that's the best part of my job. And then last but definitely not least is you. So as I was considering this role and understanding the secret sauce of Waze, I really came to appreciate the power of the community. I had the privilege of meeting many of the community members in North America at the meetup in Las Vegas, and that was amazing. And I'll say a little bit more about that a little later. Now, I want to share with you a little bit about what we're focused on. So Waze has been on an interesting journey over the last couple of years, and we've really come back to the root of Waze and what drivers love about Waze, which is that it reduces the stress of their drive and it removes surprises. And so this sounds like a no-brainer, and our surveys tell us this again and again, but what users want most from navigation apps is reliability, that it will open and be there when they need it, and that it will give them the most reliable information. So that's kind of job one. Number two, Waze drivers love that Waze is so helpful with real-time info and alerts and the most up-to-date traffic info, and you play a big part in that. So what are we going to focus on? So in order to make every drive smarter and safer, in 2023, we are going to focus on continuing to improve the driver experience and to strengthen what we call our foundation. So what does this mean? This means that we need to be wherever the drivers need us, whether it's on their mobile device or it's in car. We need to provide value on every drive. And that means we need to make sure that we are easy to use, we're available, and we're providing that real-time information. We also need to be the best community and city partner. One of the things that I did when I started in October is I quickly realized we needed to put more investment into our community tools. And so we increased our investment in those teams and those resources. Hopefully you will start to feel that this year. Additionally, we need to keep working on kind of our basic infrastructure and make sure that we're providing the highest quality service so that we have that availability, reliability. We are reducing network errors and GPS issues.
Okay. Thank you, Tina. That was fascinating. And now we'd like to get to know Tina even better with a few fireside questions. So the first question. Which features do you think need attention first?
So
no. What have you? Oh, sorry, I was reading. What have you learned since you joined Waze? Sorry,
I was going to answer the question you meant to ask. Okay, so I alluded to this a little earlier. So one of the moments, sort of the wow moments that I had at the North America meetup was just how impactful and complex the map editing tool is. And I mean that in like a good way, but I came away much more deeply appreciating the impact that it drives, but also just the knowledge that the community members have and in using the map. And I'm really excited about our roadmap this year. I already mentioned that we needed to invest more in our community tools. We need to specifically invest more in map editing. I think we definitely started that last year, and we're going to continue it. But we need to bring more capabilities to mobile devices, and we need to make it easier for L1 editors to get engaged. And I know we have some things happening around that, but we need to do more there and then help them get to that next level. The other thing I would say is there's been a lot of investment, especially during COVID, when there was sort of a dip in driving, in really shoring up our infrastructure, and it is starting to pay off. We have crash rates that are lower than industry standards, and we're not stopping there because, as I mentioned, we need to always be there. I would say that with in-car capabilities and EV, we are a bit late to the game, and that was something that was immediately known when I took the job. And we have really focused on both in-car and EV, and we're going to make tremendous progress in the first half of this year. And then I don't think I need to tell you, but the community is super important. And we just need to make sure that our efforts, and this is some of the feedback I've heard, we need to make sure that the efforts that you put in actually result in impact, whether that's in the Waze app or in some cases where it's Waze and Google Maps. And that is something that we're deeply focused on. And I'm committed to making sure that when we do engage in those very cross the journey, cross-functional, we call it cross-functional efforts, that we're not just doing it halfway. We're getting the information that that you're providing, and we're making sure it flows all the way into the user experience, and then even closing that loop back with users. So those are just some of the things that I learned in joining Waze, and I'm happy to see that we're focused on many of these things this year.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And let's move on to the second question. Which features do you think need attention first? The one I was reading before.
Yeah, so it's probably not too much of a surprise, but the first things that came up, and this also came from just using the app, was performance and ease of use. There were times for sure last summer when I was opening the app to go somewhere and it just wasn't loading. It wasn't opening or wasn't loading. We just uncovered an issue in Android upon downloading the app and onboarding that was creating some friction. And so these are the types of things that we're just being really intentional to remove. And then I would say, and I already said this, ease of use for map editing, whether it's, obviously the desktop capability, but also getting that into mobile devices. In-car features, we need parity. So we've made a start, but there's a lot more that we need to do. And then on safety and real-time insights, I think there's a huge opportunity there. There's many opportunities, but one that is acute, and I know we've heard this from the community, is really making sure that we're getting lane closures into our app, but also not just into showing the users lane closures, but actually getting it into the navigation so that we're routing people around lane closures. And that's something that we're focused on the first half of this year.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Where do you find your inspiration and creativity?
Yeah, so it depends, lots of places. So I would say that in terms of creativity, I really get a lot of creativity out of new experiences. So you will find me often at art galleries. I just went to a pop-up show that was here in Tel Aviv this weekend. And that really just gives me a different way of like looking at things. But I also just experiential. So I might try something like kiteboarding or which I do like to do in the water. I don't recommend out in the snow. But there's just like new things that just give me a different way of looking at. Oh, travel is another, obviously travel is new experiences. But travel was a huge factor in instilling a lot of creativity. And I particularly like to connect travel to going to art galleries that are in the area that I'm traveling in. And I highly recommend Tokyo and Berlin. So that's where I kind of get some creativity on the inspiration front. And that's usually inspiring around how to solve problems. I get that through quiet moments, and that's usually running, drawing, or gardening, like where I can just almost disconnect from my busy brain, and I will find that solutions kind of come to me. And so, yeah, that's kind of, so I guess new experiences, and which are always like busy and active, and then those quiet moments.
That sounds very inspiring. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Last one. What do you think about the community so far?
Yeah, so hopefully this wasn't lost on you, but I think the community is awesome. Like I said, I attended the Las Vegas mega meetup. I will attend more meetups. My key takeaways just from the engagements that I've had, and frankly from the way the team here at Waze talks about the community, engages with the community, and frankly champions your voice in our product areas. Passion definitely ranks at the top, and I would say driven, and I mean like driven to figuring out the hard things and really focused on helping drivers. So impressed. And then in meeting different community members, what really struck me is just multidisciplinary backgrounds. Like I met CPOs there, I met engineering leaders there, I met business owners there, just all over the map, people who have, lots of interesting hobbies, whether it's cookie making or knitting or whatever it is. And it's just really a pleasure to get to know the community, and I look forward to meeting more of you.
We feel the same way. Thank you. Okay. So Tina, it's great to have you here. And now I feel like we can safely take our relationship to the next level and start answering community questions together. As I mentioned before, during this session, we'll be answering questions our dear community members submitted specifically for this session, and questions from the NA Mega Meetups Q&A. Okay, let's go. We tried to group the questions by topic. You'll see that we tried to. Okay, so first question is from Jonathan from Singapore. He's asking, with the increased integration with Google, how is this going to impact the Waze community and Waze's roadmap?
This was definitely a popular question at the North America mega meetup in the roundtables. I think every single roundtable had this question, and now I'm a couple more weeks past that. And so what I will do is I want to reflect first on what Guy said in the office hours session in January, and then I can add a little bit to that. What makes Waze truly unique is our ability to bring a global community together to share real-time insights and help each other outsmart traffic. And I love that, outsmart traffic. We have been partnering with the Geo team at Google. As you know, in 2022, we kicked off Koi Fish, exploring how we can combine our strengths to make the most accurate maps between all of Google's platforms. And this really just goes back to that principle of making sure that your contributions get into not only the Waze app, but can also then show up in the Google map as well. And the Google Geo team is very excited about this. We have a lot of opportunities for collaboration. And what I will share with you in talking with all the various leaders at Geo who are, peers of mine, and including Chris Phillips, to whom I now report, many of them use Waze. They love Waze. They see how it's special and unique and why drivers love using Waze. And they're absolutely committed. The question I get all the time is, what can we do to help Waze be better and grow? So I can just say unequivocally, I see a very optimistic path forward. And I do think that we can bring more value across not only in Waze, but also in the Google Maps ecosystem as well. So, they really do understand how special you are, and that putting two and two together, we're going to be even better, more impactful. So I'm always excited to get this question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next one from Tooltime Tim from Germany asking, after map suggestions, what other projects are planned in collaboration with Google Maps?
Yeah, so we're having a variety of them. I think that stay tuned. We want to make sure that we're, making and focusing on the most impactful things and the most impactful things for Waze drivers. I think we'll take koi fish probably to the next level. Another example of conversations is we have relationships with cities that partner with us and frankly partner with many of you, and you facilitate this in order to make sure that more real-time information that cities are doing and want to show up in the map do show up in the map. And I would say the geo team, that's really caught their interest. I know we had a few members at the North America Mega Meetup, and that certainly caught their interest. And because it's high quality, highly valuable information, for example, planned road closures, Waze, when we can do it, Waze does a really good job at that. And we know that Google Maps could do better. And I think that's one area that we're exploring. So stay tuned. We will definitely share more with you as we have more firmed up plans.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next question was brought up by two people, Chad from the US and Jack Wagon from the US. They ask, it's beyond time for Waze to revamp the Map app UI and try to get some kind of feature UI parity with Apple Maps and other competitors. What are the plans for this? And they're reiterating, why is Waze so hard to use versus Google Maps? Things should have improved by now.
I agree with you. We can't turn back time, but I think we know that there was a lot of focus on carpool. We're 100% focused on Waze core product, which is helping drivers get from point A to point B. And I do recognize that our map, our app and specifically our map needs to be modernized and have less clutter. And we are focused on that. So this is something we have to work through carefully. We're doing a lot of different design ideas. We also have to modernize our map layer. I won't get too technical, but we need to modernize that to make it easier for us to make important changes and make it a higher velocity. So be a little bit patient. We're definitely have this as a top priority, and hopefully you'll start to see more improvements towards the back half of the year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And we basically placed this slide here to show you how much of an effort we're making on bringing your voice to the product decision makers. The groups or teams or squads you're seeing here are all the product areas that are relevant for this conversation right now. And as you can see, community managers are in each of the squads to represent you. And one of the squads that are very focused on what Tina just mentioned is the Client Map and App Squad, which you see Mauro is assigned to. So that's it about the squads. Let's move on to the next question. Wazer from the UK is asking, will we ever see lane guidance for approaches to roundabouts? Many roundabout entrance lanes are dictated further back down the road.
Yes. And what I mean is, yes, I understand the question. Thank you for the question. And it is planned for H1 23. So hopefully that will land in the first half of this year. It's not a guarantee, but it is aimed for the first half of the year. And if not, the first half and the second half. But yes, this is on the roadmap, and I'm sure that was due to a lot of your input. So thank you for that.
Okay, a lot to look forward to. Thank you. To our next question, Jonathan from Singapore is also asking about in-car. What is the Android Auto roadmap?
So currently, we are working on revamping the Android Auto experience with the new Android Auto projected platform. It's currently in pre-beta, and once we're done testing, we'll release the beta and then have a gradual rollout. We know there's a lot of bugs in our current Android Auto experience, and one of the reasons those bugs have persisted for as long as they have is that we're addressing them in this new revamped experience. So hopefully not only will you get a revamped experience, but a lot of the bugs that exist today will go away. So following that, we're going to work on feature parity with both mobile and in-car platforms, so Android Auto and then CarPlay.
Okay, perfect. So on to another question about in-car. Will voice reporting be included in AA's roadmap? This sounds like a nag, but currently reporting is unsafe with multiple button taps, especially at high speeds. We have 150% growth for in-car in Canada. We need the ability to make reports with voice to text. Having to tap the screen 4 times while driving should not be necessary. This really needs to be a priority from a safety point of view, and this was asked both by Jonathan from Singapore and Maneuver from Canada.
Yes, great question. So it is a part of our Android Auto projected roadmap. What I'll say is we have kind of 2 angles to this. One is we want to make sure that reporting through non-voice is much easier, and we're actually working on that right now. That will benefit not only in-car, but it will benefit the mobile experience. We think that that is super crucial. Not everybody wants to use voice. So that's one thing that we have underway right now. Should take fewer taps then to get those important points out there, reports out there. The second, around voice, there's a couple things that need to happen. One is we need to improve our voice experience overall so that people leave voice engaged. And that, what I mean by that is that they are getting the alerts and the directions in voice. And then we are also working on improving the commands. Now, in order to improve the commands, we need to partner with, and we're lucky to be able to, frankly, partner with a Google team here who's responsible for that. And being a part of Geo helps give us a little bit extra leverage in that area. So no promises. I will say I don't see voice being mature any earlier than 2024, but it is definitely clearly something that we'll be focused on.
Okay, thank you. It's good to set expectations.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Crazy Shaloop from the US. He's asking, can we get the ability to update gas prices from Android Auto and CarPlay?
So we are working on that. We are rolling out EV in-car this half of the year. And as we create a ability for user reporting related to EV, we're going to address gas prices. So stay tuned. We're actively in debate and design right now about where to do this and how to do it more easily. Again, making it require not as many taps and introducing it at the right point in time. But yes, that is part of the general plan along with our EV options.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Next question is also from Crazy Shalou from the US. He's asking, can we get the ability to add closures from Android Auto and CarPlay?
So hopefully you heard from me earlier in terms of closures, and that I think closures is an important area of focus, and it is one of our main things for 2023. So not only are we working on better surfacing information about closures in like pre-drive, but also notifications and trip overview so that drivers can see closures that are affecting their navigation. We're also making sure that our navigation and routing is taking into account not only existing closures that are reported, but planned closures. So for example, if there's a marathon, like in New York City, you won't be routed through that closure area, you'll be routed around it, and we'll tell the driver why we're doing that routing. So we're working through all of this complexity. As far as reporting, that will then follow. And as I mentioned, we're revamping the reporting menu, and that will improve in mobile, and then it will also improve in-car. So definitely stay tuned. And I'm hoping, this is always dangerous, but I think that we will see these improvements this year.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Number 2000 from the US is asking, what are the plans for merging far lanes, paths, and junction box functionality? Is this on the roadmap for 2023?
So I asked Gil about this. I don't know if he's listening or not. I got a very short answer. It is currently on the short list of candidates for H2. I do think this came up at the North America Mega Meetup. And I don't think this is an easy solve, but it is on the short list of candidates. And I'm sure that the community contact, I don't remember which person it is who's a part of that squad, will keep you all updated.
We're crossing our fingers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next one. Pox Online from Germany is asking, what is the plan around rolling out Google Assistant to more languages?
Right. So kind of building on the other question around voice and just Google Assistant. By the way, I had my first Google Assistant experience a week ago, well, almost 2 weeks ago now. And I was turning the volume on and off, and I had a nice little message that said, you can use Google Assistant, just say, I can't remember what the command is, but it basically said turn on voice or turn off voice or volume. I think it was volume. And I used it and it was brilliant. And so I was super excited about just how easy that was. I think we could do a better job of getting people used to using Assistant, similar to the experience that I have. I think there's probably more opportunities. But we don't have more languages planned right now. The main reason is we still need to solve like our base case. We don't have high adoption. We know it's not intuitive. It doesn't work well, or we're not introducing it other than the example I experienced at opportunities that make the most sense. So once we kind of get those things ironed out, then we'll work on languages.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Before I click on to the next question, I'm seeing a few questions come in through the chat. So I just want to remind everyone that we're not planning on answering live questions, but if there's anything burning or pressing, I really recommend to ask through the forum or your community manager, okay? Okay, to our next question. SunDevil2213 from the US is asking, why does there seem to be a long delay in getting updated imagery in populated areas? I have parts of the major metro area in Phoenix that have not received a single imagery update in over 4 years.
Thank you for the question. We're working on this. This is actually, I've personally been in a few conversations. This is one of the benefits of Waze being a part of the GEO organization is this will come in later phases of Koi Fish, but let's just say it'll be a lot faster progress than it might have been otherwise. And we definitely understand how critical this is. One of the takeaways from the North America Mega Meetup was just how much imagery is leveraged by the team to kind of work out some of the map navigation areas and to respond, frankly, to users' map issues that they've submitted. So definitely appreciate how important this is, and I have Gil's word that we're working on it.
Gil's word is worth gold.
I know.
Okay, so next question is from Demi92 from the US asking about the routing simulator. Can you share the status of the proposed route lane simulator so we can actually see or hear what the lane announcements are for when we fix an intersection?
Yeah, again, I can definitely appreciate how important this is. And we do plan on creating an advanced simulator. I don't have any details to share with you right now. There will be more details later this year. So do stay tuned for that. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but we definitely understand how important and helpful this will be.
Okay, thank you. The next question is somewhat related from Larry Hayes 7 from the US. Are you going to bring back set as starting point of the app so we can better test routes closer to the reports and not have to use other methods?
Yeah, so thank you and all of you who pointed this out. I believe this came from many different community members, and the beta community in particular provided feedback on the location preview page losing this capability. So we will bring back the set as starting point to the location preview page. But I will just caveat that with we may move it in the future. We're not convinced that this is the best place for it. And so we're evaluating what might make more sense. But we won't remove it until we have worked that out. And I'm sure that many of you will get a preview and input into that.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Heidi3 from the US about road shields. Many road shields are still missing and needed. Will there be an opportunity to add them in the near future?
Yes, so road shields are managed in batches, and we're waiting for the 2023 order. And then once that comes in, we'll update when we have an ETA from the designers. So it's this process that we have to go through. It seems like it should be really easy, but it's not. We have to make sure that the road shields are reflecting the locality, and then they have to be in many different sizes for different surfaces, whether it's in-car or iOS or Android, and then depending on the size of that device. So it let's just say that it's a process, and we have it in our kind of plan to do so, and we'll ping you when we have an ETA.
Thank you. And it's great to see the beta community's feedback coming to life like this.
Yeah.
Okay, next question from Rocket Science Guy from the US. He's asking about offline routing. What plans are in the works for better offline functionality in Waze? Wazers navigating through poor mobile service areas for long periods of time find themselves without being able to search for gas stations, rest areas, or other places to stop along their route. Often lose the ability to resume or recalculate the route if they do stop somewhere or deviate from the original Waze route and experience odd behavior in the app.
I have experienced this myself. So yes, thank you for the question. I definitely understand the use case. Part of the issues that you mentioned and that I've experienced, we're addressing by prioritizing right now our network, any network sort of issues that we have, and GPS drops. However, being able to have the offline functionality is going to take some thought and planning. And that is in figuring out the right balance and amount of data to download to the phone. So I do think that will help in those areas that are remote. It will particularly help in countries where they don't have quite the same coverage, or it's very expensive to get data over the data lines, and they need to do it, on Wi-Fi or what have you ahead of time. So I definitely appreciate the use case. We're also trying to figure out if there's a light app for those types of scenarios. So stay tuned. I don't anticipate, I always want to manage expectations. I don't think we'll see tremendous progress around this until 2024. But it is active conversation that's taking place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our last two slides are with suggestions that were posted for this session. So the first one is from Edgay54 from the Netherlands. He's suggesting a long trip is typically where you stay somewhere overnight. During the trip, I'd like to be able to tell Waze to break the trip into smaller pieces, and then I can take a look around those areas for a hotel I could stay at.
Yeah, this is a really interesting suggestion. I have also done this, and it is, you put in a ton of effort to plan these trips and set up your different stops. It is not a main use case necessarily that a lot of our drivers do on an everyday basis, but I can definitely see the benefit when you're going on a long trip that requires overnight stays. Having done this, like going around Iceland, or I sent my parents, through Vermont on a trip and had to map out every single stop for them, and it's very tedious. I think this is an interesting problem area that Waze could solve, but we need to kind of crawl, walk, run. So one of the early things that we're focused on is just having the ability to add more stops on a route. And then we can probably expand to something that is more useful for overnight trips or even longer trips. So nothing in the works right now. We're starting with multi stops versus these multi-day trips. But a good idea, and we'll keep it in mind.
Thank you. Okay. Last suggestion from Alfonso Crane from Canada. As opposed to Google Maps, the speed limit circle shown on the Waze screen is too small and require you to take your eyes off from the road for way too long. Making it a bit bigger would be a great help.
Yeah, so thank you for the suggestion. My observation too is that I do have trouble seeing some of the smaller items. What I'll say is we're working on the app elements as well as the map elements, and I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier when I was talking about modernizing it. And we're going to be looking at all those different elements, and we'll definitely keep size in mind. I should point out that one of the things that we do for everything that is visual that we launch is we have a research lab that is set up here where we can simulate a drive, and we have the research subject who has signed up with us to do this research, and we bring them in and they sit and they complete a series of tasks, and we can actually, with this camera unit, measure how long they have to look away from the screen. We are hypersensitive to having experiences that take too long. This is an industry-wide practice of doing this type of measurement, but I definitely hear you on the things being too small. So one of the focus areas that we tend to do with this research tool is to test workflows. Like our new reporting flow will be going through this type of UXR extensively, so we can measure the ease of use and simplicity of doing a report. But you're right. As we play with these elements, we should also look at things like the size of the speedometer and how long is someone having to look to understand what the speed is on that speedometer. So thank you for the suggestion, and hopefully over the next 18 months we'll start to see some of these suggestions come to fruition.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so that was our last entry for this session. But before we say our goodbyes, Tina, would you like to add anything?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me at the Ask Me Anything. I really hope that I get to interact with many of you a lot more. I appreciate you very much, and have a great day, evening, afternoon. I think I stole your line.
That's okay. I'll have another one. So I want to thank Tina for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you. And thank you everyone for joining us. And yes, it was great to see you and read your questions over chat and your comments. Thank you. And we'll see you on April 16th for our next office hour session. Goodbye.